My friends, if you have an interest in history, especially history from the early 1900s and late 1800s, well, stay tuned right after this because I think we've got something here that's going to fill the bill. Hello my friends, Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa Stringworks Workshop. As many of you know that follow the channel, I have recently discovered 2 lost home sites on the farm here. I kind of knew about one of them since I bought the place. In fact, someone even mentioned to me that there had been an old home place back there. And that particular home place has kind of a rock wall that's, it's all eroded away and been covered over with dirt. But where that rock wall was, I believe, was the edge of their yard, and I think the house was probably above that wall. But that's in the woods, and it's completely deteriorated where you can barely tell anything. In fact, your average person walking through there wouldn't notice anything at all if you weren't looking for the rock wall. The other place has absolutely no sign whatsoever that there was ever a house there. But I was able to locate both house places fairly specifically from a plat map. The old 1900 plat map showed exactly where both houses were placed. And so I got out the metal detector and went to work. So the next clips you're going to see are from the location back there in the back and kind of giving you your bearings on where these house places are located. For my friends who have been watching my channel for years now, I thought I'd give you a different perspective of the farm and let you know in relationship to where everything is. In other words, the workshop is up here, and if you can possibly, I'm going to zoom in. Well, I'm zoomed in, but if you can see kind of the green roof on that building right there, and then there's the big white barn with the red roof over here, behind those cedar trees, in other words. If you can see all that, that's where the workshop is and all that. We're almost halfway back. We're about 3/8 of a mile back from there. I'll zoom it back out so you can kind of get a different perspective. This is all woods. That's all my woods there. And then you can see where the woods kind of ends right here. There's a corner right here. And in this corner is where the first old house place used to be. And that's exactly halfway back on the property. In fact, the corner marker for the middle marker of the property is right in those trees there, just a little ways into those trees, right in here. And then the second old place that I found is pretty far down there. If you look past this cedar tree and then there's some trees growing right in there, that's where the second old house place is. So we're going to go over to each house place now and look at them a little closer. Okay, we're at the first house place in the woods, the one that I pointed to first. And if you can kind of see, there's a bank right through here. And that bank has a rock wall built along it, although most of the rock has collapsed and the dirt is over most of that rock. My suspicion is that the house was up on the hill there in the woods, but we haven't found much evidence of that. Most of the evidence we found has been down in this flat area. Now, it could have been built in this flat area. There could have been a house, but the problem with that is there's a huge valley right here. And this valley, it's very steep, and in a high rain, there would be a lot of water coming down this valley. So it would be kind of in a flood area, and those pioneers were pretty smart. They didn't typically build where the house would flood. So my guess is that the house was probably up on top of there, though we can really find almost no trace of it. Part of the reason for finding no trace of the actual house is in the 40s, this place was bulldozed, and these berms were made all through the whole farm. And if you can see over here, there's kind of a berm right there along the edge of the field, and it goes all the way to the end of the property. And it's in other words, when the water would run down here, to keep the fields from eroding, that would catch the water, and the water would have to run off to the sides then. So it was for erosion control. And the whole length of the property, a full mile, has been done this way. So it's kind of sad in that they destroyed probably most of the artifacts that we could have found, but we're still finding a lot of artifacts, as you'll soon see. And just again, for a different perspective, there's the old house place there that I just showed you. And then if you swing the camera around, the other old house place was right by those giant big oak trees right there, but actually just this way of them, up the hill just a little bit, and this side of those oak trees. That'll give you some idea. So approximately a quarter mile apart. Back then, a quarter mile apart would have been real close neighbors, very close neighbors, in fact. We're at the second house place now, and you can see this is quite a hill in front of us here. That up there, up in that area there, that's probably 15 feet higher than we are. So the house was sitting up on that area right there. I am almost positive, based on all the artifacts that we've found. These giant oak trees right here, and they're huge, at least 3-foot diameter type trees. They were probably saplings when that house was up there. And you can just kind of see that from up there, they would have had a beautiful view. And I'll take you up there and show you what their view would be like. So this is sort of the view from up there. Now, the thing that has changed is that I built this pond. This was not here back then. This pond is spring fed. Now, the spring comes out from right under these big oak trees. And you can possibly see a little bit of the ditch line right there that goes into the pond and keeps the pond full. And hopefully you can see on the far side there's a pipe that I put in, and that's where the water continues to drain out because the spring runs constantly. So the water drains out that pipe, runs down the ditch behind there, and goes all the way over to the creek. It's a beautiful spot here on the farm, though. You can see that they could see way down the valley and way up the valley this way too. So this would be a beautiful place to have your house, and it wouldn't flood. So now I'll show you the ground here, and this is just where we're finding all the artifacts. You can see I have scraped it off with my bobcat, and I've only scraped it. I didn't really move any dirt. I cut all the brush and the trees off here so that we could metal detect it, and we have found just literally hundreds of artifacts. And it's obvious there was a house here just based on the things we found, because we found a spoon, and we found a fork, and we found little bits of china and things like that. We found a couple of remnants of toys. So it's very obvious that this had to be a house place because of the stuff we found. Would have been a very, very isolated place to live back in the 1800s. I don't think there were any other close neighbors. The way I discovered this was through plat maps. Plat maps show you where the houses were. They don't show you where the barns and things like that are. They just show you where the houses were. And so there was the house of the neighbor way over there in those trees. You can't really see it through all the brush. But on that far tree line back over there, that's where the neighbor was. And then this house was here, of course. And there's a giant hill behind this. This goes way up. And this eventually connects to Mark Twain Forest. In fact, the whole length over here is bordered by Mark Twain Forest, the whole thing, and all across the back. And then most of the side on this side of the valley is bordered by Mark Twain, but there are some private houses along there too. It's remote now, but can you just imagine how remote it was back in the 1800s? Oh my gosh. Well, my friends, here's a look at the table of mostly what we found. Quite honestly, this isn't all of it. There was lots more just really trashy pieces. Like, I mean, just like this kind of stuff. There was a lot of this kind of stuff we just threw away, couldn't identify it. Here's a whole bunch of it just laying here, you know, just trashy stuff. Here's a lot of pieces of porcelain that are just little fragments, but you can tell just by the fragments how old they were. My suspicion is, like, this piece here was probably a chamber pot. In other words, it has that big lip on it where you could get a grip on it, so it'd be a large pot. And, big porcelain pot. This is my guess. I don't know this for sure. But they, instead of going outside to the bathroom in the middle of the night, this was what you went to the bathroom in, basically. Here, and this could have been a crock or something. It's shaped a little different. I think this may have been some kind of a crockware, maybe even with a lid that you would store butter in or something. Who knows? And then these other ones look like pieces of a plate. Found the obligatory harmonica reed pieces. At least I believe these were off of harmonicas. These look a little different, a little bit heavier than the typical, but I would say that that's what they're for. I really don't know anything else they could be. Lots of old rivets. Just, because back, the other kinds of fasteners just weren't that popular, so rivets. Here's something riveted that looks like it would have spun around this rivet, but I can't tell what that is. Actually, what I think it is some old folding type ruler, some very old ruler that I think would have folded around this is what I think that is, but I don't know that for sure either. It's just a guess. This handle is I believe, a handle off of a ladle, off of a dipper. We always called them a dipper, a water dipper. You'd set this next to your water bucket and you'd dip it down in the bucket and take a drink, and the dipper end, of course, is missing, but I'm almost sure that's what that is. Lots of other miscellaneous stuff. Here's a stove foot. Look at that very ornate old stove foot. I'm pretty sure that's what this went to. Probably an old wood stove of some sort. Lots of pieces of chain back here. This one with the ring on it, I would say this might have been the one that hooked up to the harness. That's what my guess is. And speaking of harness, the way you would hook your harness to a implement or a wagon or something is that there was a piece of wood going across this hook here. There'd been a piece of wood across here. There'd been another one of these hooks on the other end, and just about the width of your horse, you can imagine. So something like this. And then that piece of wood across here. Now, in the middle, there would be a big ring that you would hook to your implement or whatever you were pulling. And then this would hook to your harness, and the other hook would hook to the harness and go up around the horse. And like you could hook it like that. And this, this would be the way this would connect up to your horse. Or it might have hooked on that, like that, and then hook up to your horse. So your end of your harness would have some kind of a metal fastener on it, a chain or a link that looks something like this. I'm not saying this was exactly for that purpose, but I'm just giving you an idea. And this then is how they would hook it up to the horse. Pretty ingenious, pretty simple way to do it. My brother Scott found this, and if you don't know what this is a bit for a workhorse. In other words, this part went in the horse's mouth, this part went to the reins, and there was another piece just like this that went across the rest of the horse's mouth, and then there would have been another big ring that would go to the reins. He found this at the site above the pond, and sadly, I found another one exactly like this, but mine had this broken open, which I'm sure went to this one also, or at least I think it was. I found it right there at the same location. But I have lost mine. I cannot find it. I don't know where it is. I do have a picture, and I'll insert the picture right now of the other half. By the way, my brother found a majority of this stuff because I was cherry picking looking for coins and I didn't really find any coins. He found this one at the first old home site that I showed you with the rock wall, and then he found this one at the home site above the new pond. But they match, you know, pretty close anyway. They're not identical. This one's actually a little bit smaller. You can see that. So these were probably handles on something is what I'm guessing. And, you know, like maybe a trunk or something like that. But these were found at the two different home sites. They don't match, but they're very similar and very similar purpose, indicating that life back in the 1800s was probably similar from one farm to another, you know, because you had the same kind of things. This I thought is very interesting. I don't know what this is for sure. This metal piece here has threads on it. I believe this is brass or something. And the threads extend down through this glass. This is thick glass. Now, my first thought is that this was some sort of a lamp, oil lamp, and this bottom was the oil, you know, and maybe there was some kind of threaded thing with a wick on it that went down through here. That's just a guess. I truly do not know. If anybody does know what this is, please say so. But I've never really seen this before, but that's my very best guess would be some sort of an oil lamp. But I really don't know for sure. You know, big old buckles like this, just all kinds of things that we found. Just tons and tons of things. Two files. I think my brother found this file, and I found this end here, and I thought they might go together, but they don't. They do not belong together. In fact, I think this was found at the rock wall home site, and I think I found this one at the other home site above the pond. So they don't go together. You can tell this one's actually thinner than that one, so they're not even the same width. I found this one at the farm with the rock wall, and what's unusual about this is it's a double cut file, and it's double cut on both sides. And they have purposely bent it this way. I do not know why they bent it, but you can tell they forge bent that, and it's even wrinkled here like it would wrinkle when you try to bend something flat on its edge. Very unique. Would love to know why they did that. This is just a big old piece of heavy iron. I do not know what it went to, but you can see the grooves in there. Do not know what that went to. But very large, very heavy piece of iron. Here's a piece of railroad iron that has broken off. The base is broken off, but this is definitely a piece of railroad iron. It looks like a very small gauge, so it could have been used in a mine. There were two mining leases on this property back in the very early 1900s. They were mining silver is what I understand, so this could have maybe been part of a tract that was working in that silver mine or possibly something like that. I don't know. I'm not able to find any trace of the silver mine on the property, but this is the only thing that I could even possibly say would be for the mine, you know, would be this old railroad track. Now, we do have railroads that come very close to the farm here, but they use much bigger gauge track than this. You know, some more just old pieces that I'm sure went to plows and things like that. This is probably off of an old plow. Also, this little knob here tells me that, but I don't remember how this went together. I just remember seeing it, and I know this was some part of a plowshare or something like that. This is pretty unique. This held the sides on a wagon. You can see the three rivets here. These are not bolts. They look like bolts, but they're rivets. And this is an old square bolt down here, square nut, I should say. This, if you could imagine a big square box wagon, a long square box, there would have been a crossboards going under the narrow part of that box, and this would have went down through one of those crossboards. And then this would have been riveting on the sideboards of that wagon. So this is what held the sideboards on. This is just a random piece of steel. I don't know what this would have went to, but I'm sure they would have used it on the farm. This is a bearing for an axle on some old piece of machinery or some old farm equipment. It's got a poured babbitt inside here. You can see the poured babbitt inside this. It's an old babbitt bearing is what they call it. Here's another, just a piece of, probably another piece of some kind of machinery or something like that. I don't think this is heavy enough for a plow, but it's got a loop forged into it there for some purpose. I'm not sure what this was. It could have been a plow thing. Here's a pin that you would have hooked into, I told you about hooking up your implement. A lot of times you would run a pin down through something to keep it connected. And there's no threads on this, so I'm sure that's what this was used for. And you can see right there where it's worn, where the hook would have hooked into it and pulled. Very interesting. Here's the boot heels that I have found and shown in previous videos. I believe this was found at above the pond, and I think this one was found at the rock wall. This is like a lock, I believe, a lock housing, and this, I believe, was some sort of a pocket watch type apparatus, insides of a pocket watch, perhaps. Just lots of stuff. Found tons of these old shotgun shells. I'll put some close-ups in the shotgun shells and put some dates. There's just literally tons of those. And here's an old knob, an old steel knob that probably went to maybe a cabinet or something. It's broken off. Might have went to some machinery, you just don't know. But it's a steel knob that looks like it could have been a cabinet knob. We found some, what we think are toys. This little piece here, it looks like it says Aris on it. Is what we think, A-R-I-S, and we don't know what that is. It's just a piece of pot metal. This looks like a wheel off of a toy train car or something like that. Both of these were found above the pond site. Here's a piece of copper, I think, that I think was probably the top of a lamp or something. Maybe the neck of a lamp, something like that, oil lamp again. Perhaps it even went over something like that, like this piece here. I'm just giving you an idea. This was really crushed. I tried to open it back up to give you some idea what it would have looked like. It would have been round. And, I'm just saying that that's a possibility. I really don't know. It may have went to a lantern or some other type of light, but I would imagine it was a light thing. It could have been something else. Most of my stuff I'm telling you is just guesses, my best guess. Then lots of just miscellaneous stuff. We found these two axe heads. I found this one at the rock wall site. My granddaughter found this one at the pond site. Again, showing you that life was very similar. These were both double-bladed axes, both of them broke in half, and they do not match up. They kind of look like they could go together, but they don't. They just don't go together. When you turn them up where they could go together, then this one's wore up here, this one's wore down here, so they don't go together. It's real obvious. But anyway, they were found at the two different sites. Here's just a random piece of steel that I would believe went to a buggy or a wagon. And my guess, this is my guess, I do not know, I think this was attached up to the wagon somehow, and this was the step, where you step up on this and then get up into the wagon. That's my guess. It could have been something entirely different. There's two holes there where the step would have been riveted on. That's my best guess. I do not know what this is. It more likely had something to do with a wagon or some other type implement, something like a wagon. Here is a nondescript piece. It looks like it was probably some type of a nut. Very large, so terribly rusted. This was found in the spring by the rock wall house. So I don't know what that is. All right, now we're going to show you the best stuff. Save the best for last. Someone identified these as hem weights for the dresses or for curtains. They used them in curtains also. But these people were probably so poor, this was probably for a dress. No doubt about it, I would think. A hem weight. It's made out of lead, very heavy. This little weight here has a wire coming out of both ends of it. I think this may have been some way to seal up a sack or something. Just a guess. I don't know what this is. I really don't. I haven't been able to figure it out. But some people said it was for holding up the hosiery like socks and things like that. And it could have been, but it doesn't look like that to me. This piece here in the middle I think spins and this piece locks in. I really don't know for sure, but it probably was for holding up socks or something like that. Here, now we're getting into the little bit better stuff, and then we're going to get into the really good stuff here in a minute. Here's an old foot, I think they call these foot laths or something like that. Anyway, it was for a cobbler, for working on shoes. This looks like it would have been the size for a child or perhaps a woman. This would have been the toe end, and then there would have been a heel end on here, and you drop this down over a metal deal that this would just be kind of like an anvil. You'd set this down. You had different sizes of these, and you would set them down on this metal part that went up like this, and that would hold it, and then you'd work on your shoe, and you had different sizes for different size shoes. And this is definitely a small one. Actually, it's the smallest one I've ever seen. This, I don't know what it is. It looks vaguely familiar. It's too heavy, I think, to be for coveralls or overalls or anything. I kind of think this is a buggy thing, but I don't know for sure. It's very hard to say. I know it looks like it would be for coveralls or overalls or something like that, but honestly, I don't know what it is for sure. More random bits of metal, but then we found these two really cool things at the pond home site. This is really cool. This is Oxford Silver Plate Company, and the patent for this is the Narcissus pattern, and it was patented back in, I think, January 14th, 1908, I believe, was when this was patented. And very early. It's not solid silver, it's just silver plated, I think. This is an old fork, and this could look more modern, but I really believe this is very, very old. This probably had wooden handles, not plastic, and the wood has rotted off. These ends look like they're pewter or something like that, even perhaps lead, but I think they're pewter. And of course, all the tines on the fork are gone. Very old, very rusted. This one was definitely found above the pond. I am not sure where this one was found, if it was at the pond site or at the wall site. My brother found this one. Moving up a little bit more yet, and some little better stuff. This is this was a ball, some sort of a metal that doesn't, completely deteriorate. It was a round ball at one time. It has threads on the ends. Most people identified this as being a bed knob, and I think it could have been. It could have also been a knob screwed down on the hanes of a harness of the collar that goes around a horse's neck. It's possible it could have been that, but it is also very possible that this was screwed onto the bedpost. Just don't know for sure. Okay, now we're down to the best two finds. I'll show you this one first. This is a pocket knife. And you might say, well, that's not that old. But I can tell you for sure, this one is very old. It has 4 blades, I believe. I have not found anything on the internet that actually looks like this. In fact, I really haven't found anything very close. Here's the main features of this. First of all, that little tag, I have not found one with just that real narrow, thin tag. I found them with bigger tags, but not that thin one. Also, these very short end pieces, very short compared to most of them. 4 blades rather than 2, and it's completely straight. It's not got no curve to it at all. And I believe this is a celluloid type material on here. As this dries out, this is curling more and more. This was very wet. It was down very deep in the ground. It was probably almost 8 inches deep. I am very sure this dates from the late 1800s or possibly early 1900s, right around before 1910 even. I'm almost 100% convinced. I have been putting some very light acid on this, trying to etch out the name, and I do think I see a crown on the left side, and there was a Crown Cutlery Company, and there was an Imperial Company, and I think Imperial's still around, but I cannot find any knives that match the look of this, and I have searched very extensively. If you find one that matches it exactly, let me know, but I truly don't think you're going to find one that matches it exactly. There's a lot of them that are very similar, but they're not the same. For the record, this is 3.5 inches long in this closed format like this. This is the best thing we found, in my opinion, and my brother Scott found this. You probably can't see it very well, but I'll hold it up here as still as I can, and hopefully the camera can focus on it. And I'll turn it a little bit so maybe you can see the different, you can see the ornate detail here. This is an Anheuser-Busch piece of memorabilia that dates to 1880. We have found this on the internet. It is an old match case. In other words, this was, kind of oval shaped around here, and then there was a lid that pushed down on top of this, and the back was just as ornate as this front side. Very ornate piece. Unfortunately, this one has either been cut apart or broke apart somehow. I don't know why it's in pieces like this, but we have not found the rest of the pieces. But this is definitely the oldest thing I've ever seen from Anheuser-Busch, and it is dated 1880 on the internet. Well, my friends, I hope you enjoyed a look at the artifacts that we have found so far. Now keep in mind, these are only the artifacts we've dug. There are literally, and I am not exaggerating even that much, there are literally thousands and thousands more signals out there. Just signals everywhere. There is no telling what is laying in the ground yet to be discovered. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and give us a thumbs up. I would appreciate it. Tell your friends. We need to hit that 100,000 subscriber mark, and we're getting close. Thank you so much for watching.